A pleasant good night to one and all. I have to begin by thanking my good friend and little brother Akim for his very exuberant introduction of me just now. I also want to say to you, the people of Brandon's and the wider Barbados Labour Party family, that I really do owe a debt of gratitude to my colleague and comrade Trevor Preston. I specifically asked Trevor to come here tonight and to speak openly in the way in which he did. Because the message that Trevor brought tonight is the message that the Barbados Labour Party has to take to this community here in Brandon's. And I owe this debt of gratitude because I was at Haggett Hall earlier this year, or maybe late last year, when Trevor spoke. And I said to myself, as a candidate for the Barbados Labour Party in the next election, I will not betray the teachings that the great people like Neville Duncan, the late Pat Emanuel, George Bell, Professor Hilary Beckles, and people of that sort instilled in me almost 20 years ago when I went to the university, just because I am a politician. And I began on Saturday when, in support of my friend and colleague Sandra Husbands, who served with me in the Senate, to speak in similar terms. I am not going to call them parasites. I am not going to call them hypocrites. I am not going to call them the great betrayers. I call them simply political Luddites. And people since Saturday have been asking me, what is a Luddite? The Luddites were the people who did not want modernization in Britain in the 19th century. They went around the place and mashed up every factory, every engine, because they felt that Great Britain should always be a rural and agrarian society. Feudal lords holding everything, and the serfs at the mercy of the feudal lords. We have in this country a group of people who are representing you today, who I call the modern day Luddites. They don't want modernization. They don't speak to the development of this country. They blame international circumstances for non-performance. Right. They live off the fat of the land. A man like Ronald Jones could preside over the Barbados Football Association and be your Minister of Education and Human Resource Development at the same time for 14 years. And Barbados is now ranked below Dominica in football. No disrespect to Dominica, but Dominica got one pasture in the whole of Dominica that he could play football on. One pasture. And millions of dollars of FIFA money allocated to the Barbados Football Association. And today, our football is ranked 175th in the world, the lowest it has ever been ranked. For 14 years, Ronald Jones presided over the largest. And these political Luddites that occupy the government of Barbados today don't care about you. And I said to you on Saturday night, I will say tonight in Brandon's, that when C.L.R. James sat down and analyzed the breakup of the West Indian Federation, he blamed a class of people called the West Indian middle class. Those persons who got an opportunity through education, know nothing about the productive sectors of the economy or the society. They don't care about social engineering. They don't care about taking a community out of poverty and into a situation where people can improve their material circumstances. In this community tonight, we can see no discernible evidence of the Constituency Council working to transform the lives of the people of this country. But Trevor told you, $100,000 is being spent on a football tournament. And we happy in Barbados about that. But I grieve when I can read in the newspapers this week that a good friend of mine who went to school with me when we went to St. Michael's School in the 80s, he from the Pine, I from Britain's Hill, and the former Chief Education Officer, Wendy Griffith Watson, a fantastic woman, looked at us as two little black boys and said, I can make something out of women. And the man who is heading up the political football tournament in the memory of David Thompson, my personal friend, used to be an active member of this party, but pulled himself up, went to university with me, went on to the London School of Economics, graduated at the top of the class in a master's in social policy. He is the director of social policy in Barbados today. But the Democratic Labour Party has him coordinating a political football tournament. A man from the Pine pulling himself up in this country. Top of the University of the West Indies, top of the London School of Economics. And rather than using that talent and drive, these political Luddites have my good friend trying to take $100,000 from this constituency to put this in this place for football tournament in memory of David Thompson. I have no problem with football. You all know I'm the secretary of the Barbados Cricket Association. I love sports. But I want you to be conscious and to open your eyes, because they're going to come with the balance of the truckload of money that they get from Clico to buy this election and to tell you all sorts of manner of things about the Barbados Labour Party and its candidates. And we have to deal with that, because the time has come for what CLR James called the end of this Ludditism in politics in the Caribbean. This community here in Brandon's and Birds River, I have walked, not all, but a lot of it. And I have a fantastic team of people working to develop the programs, because I cannot come to politics. I don't need anything from politics. But I live in a country and I want to see my country progress. And when I see people like Patrick Todd and Kenny Bess and Dennis Kelman and James Paul and Michael Lashley, another disgrace, one of us, flying about all over the world in planes owned by people who do not care about you or your children or how you are going to make it tomorrow. Building slab houses, as Trevor tell you. We in Barbados know where you step out your house. We could go to the end of our land and say this land is mine. There are no lot lines in Coverley. You don't own any land. But they're building houses as if it is a factory. You got to go and get the mortgages and pay the banks, and if you don't pay the banks can put it out. They can sell their properties again. And that is what they are encouraging a certain class of people in Barbados to eat from the fatted calf, while people in this country suffer on a daily basis. coming into the communities in the dead of night and going into a house, letting go a couple $100 with promises of more. Nobody in these communities wants a politician to be doing that. People want work. And you remember the Barbados Labour Party came to office in 1994 with a quarter of the working population not working. We left it at 6%. Because we understood that there is no difference between the economy and the society. If you do not have the economic resources, you can't give free bus fares, you can't have constituency councils, you cannot have summer camps. But do not be fooled. None of these policies, and Chris Sigler is the architect of the constituency councils and summer camps when he was the first minister of social care. But not the first, he was the one, because they had to get rid of Dennis Lowe, because Dennis Lowe had no conception of the political agenda that David Thompson had in his head. So they had to move Lowe and put Chris Sigler there. And a man that comes from a community like this, you would think he would use the brains of the director of social policy to socially re-engineer the basis of our existence in this country. But you put it to head constituency councils. I know denigrate one of the brightest brains in the civil service in Barbados to organize a football tournament. That is what they care about you. Now, I have no problem with a summer camp. I seriously don't have a problem with a summer camp. But rather than taking the people that build the houses money and bringing in the cheap shoes from China, India, and Indonesia, spending $100,000, and let me tell you how you can spend it. Set up 5 community centers in this constituency. One here in Brandon's, one in the farm, one in Freehill and St. Stephen's, and one in Goodland. And give each of them community groups $20,000. And let them buy some materials and bring in some young men in Barbados who know how to make shoes and teach a young child how to make a shoe. Teach him something that is intrinsic, that can help that child appreciate the beauty of his labor and the use of his ingenuity to build and create something. But you lick it out on football, lick it out on dances and fetes. Take the people money, mix it with the white people money, and say you're going to the farm to build a gymnasium. While the trees in the hard court, the rotten trees, swing from side to side, and people frightened when the highway come because you can't cut down the trees. These people have no conception about the developmental struggle of the people of this country. They are there to serve and brag that the Democratic Labour Party is in office. They have nothing to show, they have nothing to do, and we have nowhere to go with this Democratic Labour Party. It is a simple truth. When last did Parliament meet to discuss anything to move this society forward? For those of you who have the time to watch the battle Obama has to face in equally or even more difficult circumstances. He can show he killed Bin Laden. He saved the auto industry that put people in Michigan and Ohio back to work. Reform Wall Street. Implement health care in difficult circumstances. But Obama ain't going clear tonight. Compare the record of the Democratic Labour Party. One bill in 2008. The Constituency Council's bill. And one bill in 2012. Between 2008 and 2012, the Democratic Labour Party has brought only 2 pieces of legislation on its statute books in Barbados. 2 new pieces. If you go and buy the laws of Barbados as passed in 2008 and 9 and 10, you don't have to buy them because they're full of guarantees for loans and debts. There's no social engineering going on. There's no progress in this society. And you do not need a bountiful economic climate in the world to engineer this country called Barbados, because the great patriarchs did it with less resources than these have now. You imagine Grantley Adams and the Right Excellent Grantley Adams and the Right Excellent Errol Barrow as a major piece of their social infrastructure, a football tournament for people to lick out. You imagine that? And we accept that. And we can say, well, things tight. You imagine a Tom Adams allowing the Barbados National Oil Company to rake in excess of $60 million in profit a year and selling oil to the Barbados Legend Power. Like if you're buying the oil from Saudi Arabia, oil that is here for the benefit of all of us to keep a regime in place. So another financier of the Democratic Labour Party can import the oil and make money. That is why all the minibuses in Barbados got to line up at the privileged pump against the law, so that people can live off the fatted calf, and we get boiled down to a low gravy and suffering in this country on a day-to-day basis. I say to you, I cannot promise you tonight a peaceful night in your soul, but I can promise you that if you give me the opportunity, I can get it done in one day, in 1 month. But I have no interest in vilifying the people who vote for the Democratic Labour Party or the people who support the Democratic Labour Party, because I will be a member of Parliament for St. Michael Northwest and not for the Barbados Labour Party supporters alone. And this victimization of the people who speak out against the injustices that go on in this country has to stop. I don't want to talk about myself because I have been a victim of that. We will deal with that later. But we have to see these communities, and I had a discussion with Noel Lynch, and Noel Lynch has assured me that whether or not he gets back in Ministry of Tourism or not, we will craft a plan. You see this stretch of beach going from here right down to the Four Seasons that St. Clair had told you that will start back ever since? It is the most beautiful piece of real estate on the West Coast yet undeveloped. And the challenge is not to allow somebody to come into Barbados and take up the beach and do what they like with it. But we must create an orderly, integrated development program so the communities here in Brandon can go out there and work. And we have a sporting community. And let me give you a little idea what I'm talking about. The best volleyball team in Barbados comes from this constituency. That's right. We have pristine beach here. We have the port, the cruise facility there. We should be able to fashion a plan to develop the best beach sports facility in the world, where people can come off of cruise ships, and the people in this community can tell the grandmother, I'm going to play against the best beach volleyball players in the world, come down, Granny, to Brandon's and watch me play. We have to develop the sporting talents of the young people in this country. We don't need buildings and concrete going up so the owners of capital in Barbados could use the state resources and the land to make millions of dollars. And then ordinary people like you and me have to pass and look at it. And I really feel that the beach sports has to be developed. And for the first time you will see in the Olympics, beach volleyball became an Olympic sport. Why cannot we begin the process of training young people in beach volleyball and creating champions? But you can take $100,000 and lick it out in a football tournament rather than to develop communities and community councils, community-based councils. I want to tell you something too. I had this week the occasion to meet with a community development group coming out of Freehill. And I spoke to them. And lo and behold, in yesterday's paper, I saw an ad buried in very, very deep into the Nation newspaper where the United Nations is making available grants for non-state actors and community projects. And I called the leader of that group and said, look, I have in my campaign team, and Clyde Maskell, I am very sorry if you feel badly about it. Your beautiful sister Margaret, who has never walked with you in politics, is walking with me. But I have a plan where we can assist these community groups to access grant funding that is available to do community projects. I don't want to be involved in it, because once you get politicians involved in it, the international agencies can back off, because obviously the United Nations cannot be seen to be supporting a political program. But what we have to do is to give the institutional support to the community groups, those that exist and those that want to be founded, and give them the institutional support so they can put a community plan together and access the $25,000 that is available. And we are working, so if you don't see me today, you know that I am still working, because we got to sit down and ensure that that community group puts a proper application in to deal with the community project that they envision for down in Pell Bay and Danesbury. And that is what I believe we, the black people, children that went to school and learned, and now can say to you, we offer ourselves as representatives, should do in this country. We owe a debt of gratitude to the patriarchs and the stalwarts and the founders and the people who work hard in this country, not to come and divide and rule. And I really, really feel that the time has come for us to look at our politics in a different way in Barbados. We have abandoned the development agenda. We have adopted too many concepts from abroad and brought them into our political vocabulary. So every time you talk to politicians, tell about the international recession. But we have learned that necessity is the mother of invention. And you have a minister of education and human resource development sitting down for 4 years in this country. Not one thing has been done in education, apart from the destruction that they wave at the University of the West Indies, where I and a number of the young people in this community standing here tonight have gone and gotten education. Nothing in the name of human resource development. No plan. But they can blame the international recession. You will tell me that an international recession can stop you from sitting down with some of the highly skilled, trained people in this country to map out real social engineering efforts to transform the lives of people. But we can give the Democratic Labour Party access to the catastrophe fund to lick out
10 minutes.
in the next election. So that, you remember, Thomas came late October. So the hurricane season ain't over in October anymore. But the Democratic Labour Party has changed the law to suit themselves. They have changed the law to get access to the funds in the catastrophe fund to lick out in a political campaign to fill the coffers of the UDC and the RDC. And that institution of the catastrophe fund was established on a basis where you have to establish real need. People who insure their houses and their properties will use the insurance to build back their properties in the event of a catastrophe. But they want to lick it out in a political campaign. Just like how the people who cannot get a loan on their insurance policy from Clico because their children went back to school. People who cannot pay for a funeral or medical treatment for a relative. I see people in my office every day. I saw a lady last week who had a problem with pregnancy. And on her third attempt, she had to get specialized medical treatment, and when she went to Clico, not a cent. And she lives every day in fear because the doctor told her, unless certain treatments are given to you, you can die with this check. She bought a policy, can draw on the policy. And Faker tell you that he can give a solution to Clico in June. Now, I don't have to tell you how lying Sinclair is. He has told so much lies in 4 years in politics in Barbados that if they had lying at the Olympics, he should lie for Barbados. And he would do well. Because when you as a Minister of Finance to stand up in front of the podium and tell a lie on two prime ministers of sister Caribbean countries at the same time. But I mean, if you could say that a government can invest in Four Seasons, well, that is a mammoth. But Sinclair can't even get. They had to get rid of Tony Marshall as the chairman of the NIS in order to get at the NIS funds. He can get the NIS in Barbados invest in Four Seasons, but he can give you the assurance that St. Vincent and Dominica, like if Ralph Gonzalez and Scar is too big idiots to take the people money that invested and lick it out in a hotel here in Barbados. And when a man could, and I said this to those of you who went to Deacon's Road, within the first 10 minutes of his budget presentation this year, could tell a lie on national stage. And not only did he tell a lie, you know, he left the script and reiterated that the Barbados Labour Party paid the BCA $900 million over the life of a lease for Kensington. Now I'm the secretary of the Barbados Cricket Association, and we negotiated that lease with the Barbados Labour Party, and they went to the office before it being signed. And members of the BCA, if you will recall, Leslie Haynes and Donna Simmons and Vernon Smith took the BCA to court to stop the negotiations and to stop the special meeting that we had. That lease arrangement was concluded in mid-2009. The same Darcy Boyce, who was the CEO of the BTI under the Barbados Labour Party, that negotiated with the BCA, became the minister in the Prime Minister's office, who concluded those negotiations in 2009. The lease signed in 2009, but Sigler could tell you that the Labour Party executed that lease. Now I want to tell one of this here tonight. You see the lights going on at Kensington Oval? I want you to take me at my word. If you do not have an insurance policy to cover you, don't set foot in Kensington Oval. You hear what I tell you? Sigler is saying that Clyde Maskell is a liar. When he tells you that the government is broke, he says Clyde lying. I am telling you here tonight, if the events going on at Kensington Oval, the organizations don't have public liability insurance, don't set foot in Kensington Oval. The government cannot pay the insurance on that facility. There is no money in the bank to pay salaries. And all the money that the city BCA get from Kensington, BCA get paid in 2 years. But this government ain't broke. Hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to Light and Power and the Water Authority.
The hospital about 2 ambulances tonight.
A young lady died in Barbados last week, and another like Francis de Pisa. All of a sudden he appeared because he's Philip Gray's nephew. Never associate with a community group, a choir, a cricket team, a football team. Nothing appears anointed because he's Philip Gray's nephew. And he's telling you a lot of hogwash about they ordering ambulances, but he's not at liberty to say anything in Barbados. Nothing to offer the people. But walking about pretty in Barbados and talking fancy and denigrating the people that come from communities like these. People like me. People like the Director of Social Policy, who is not football coordinator in this country. I want to say to you, the Labour Party lost this box here in Brandon's Birds River and the western side of the farm by 4 votes. 4 votes. So don't feel that Sigler is not McGuffey. Vote down here. 4 votes. 252 to 256. We are here tonight to reverse them 4 votes. We are working in this constituency not only to ensure that you can get natural gas and that we can deal with the problems of flooding in this constituency, but we can find ways to give your children a skill that if they go to school and learn, they can go up on top of the hill and get an education and get a job and work anywhere in the Caribbean or the world, because that is the mission that Granny Adams and those great patriarchs set out on when the Barbados Labour Party was formed in 1938. Not to talk about free education for 50 years, but to get in there and do things for people in this country and carry this country to another level. When we laid the strategic plan in Parliament, Thompson didn't say a word on that debate. And I told my colleagues, I can deal with White House Stephen Lashley because he's married to a cousin of mine, but I saw him at a family function. But imagine a national strategic plan is laid in the Parliament of Barbados speaking about taking this country to the next level of development. And David Thompson does not say a word. What does that tell you? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to rid this country of the political Luddites. Chris Sigler and Don Valinis and Ronald Jones and Patrick Todd and Kenny Best and Michael Carrington, all of them got to go off the face of this man in Barbados and restore this country to people who have the talent, the drive, and the commitment not to get rich and switch. Not to be, when you're talking to them about your problems, looking at two blackberries at the same time and then listening to you, but just going through the motion of a constituency clinic.
I'm telling other people your problems. Talk, man.
We need to take this country out of the hands of the Democratic Labour Party leaders. I am thankful for all those who spoke. I am thankful for you coming out tonight to listen. And we will continue to begin this conversation because I want you to help me develop the plan for Brandon's, like how I want the other people in the other parts of this constituency to develop their own communities. Thank you for coming out. Good night, and God bless you all.